On this episode of The Open Road, we're getting dodgy, or rammy. So this is the RamTrucks 1500 and this is the Warlock edition. It also comes in a Laramie edition. The Warlock is the more off-road one and the Laramie is the nicer one with the fancy pants interior. Both trucks have a 5.7 litre Hemi V8, which is very thirsty but gives you a lot of horsepower and even more torques. The Warlock edition has got a few extra bits and pieces in terms of styling. It's got the snout on the bonnet there, which I actually think it looks really aggressive and really cool. And it's also got the ram box at the back, so let me show you what that is. This isn't optional, it's not on every model, but you can have it if you want it. Basically it's just external storage, it's lockable, and it's actually quite deep. This would be great for putting in recovery gear and bits and pieces like that, things that you don't want in the cab but are relative to whatever you're using in the train, maybe tie down some motorbikes, things like that. It's plenty of big space and it's waterproof, and if for some reason you do get something in it, it's got a bung in there as well, so it's a nice little feature. So being a big American truck, it's got a big American deck, full size, easy, a few dirt bikes on there. I'm not sure if this thing is an optional extra or not, but it's a divider, and it also adds a bit of space if you want to use the tailgate down while you're driving. Just gives a bit of a cage there, but yeah, she's a big girl. Alright, so inside this big girlie there is a lot of space. This is very much a large vehicle for the New Zealand market. There is no shortage of space or compartments or things to put places. It is brilliant. I really like it. There are cubbies for everything, and there is literally, if you've got it, there's a space for it. You could fit a full-size laptop in the center console. It is brilliant. The infotainment system is actually the same infotainment system as what was in the Jeep, so it's very familiar, it's very nice, and it's very easy to use, and that also translates over to the dash. The monitor on there is actually the same as well. There's a couple of features in this which are sort of big truck specific, so there's a manual trailer brake that you can use, and the gear select on this is a dial as opposed to a big column change shift, which not only takes away from the nostalgia, but it's also a really weird thing to get your head around. But other than that, it's huge, there's space for everything, and it's very comfortable. But one of the first things I actually noticed was all of the surfaces are really nice. It's got nice leather and all of that sort of thing, and again, this is still the Warlock. But the steering wheel has got the same rubberized finish as some of the other surfaces like the door trims, which I'm assuming they've done that for ruggedness as opposed to anything else, because it's going to be a hard wearing bit. But I just feel like it would be a bit nicer if they'd kept the leather, but there you go. Anyway, enough talk about that, let's take it for a drive. We're actually out at the Woodhill Forrest at the Polaris Adventure Park because I thought it would be fun to actually take a four-wheel driving. So here we are, and I gotta say it's actually doing really well. I think the likelihood of anyone actually taking their Warlock to a four-wheel drive park or really serious off-roading is actually quite low, but I think it's nice to know that it can if you want it to. This thing is just sailing around here. It's mostly sand, and I'm avoiding the deep ruts because I don't want to break it, but no, I think it's very capable, a big truck. Now I've gone and got myself lost at the four-wheel drive park. It's not the end of the world, it's just a question of how we're getting out of here, but it's a good way to test capabilities. There's absolutely no shortage of torque or power. It's a pretty comfortable place to be in this truck right now. We were actually out here the other weekend in some mates' trucks and they were little Pajeros, and I gotta say, considering that we're driving a land ship right now, it's actually doing pretty well. It's soaking up a lot of the little bumps. You still notice the big stuff, but it feels very capable. You do notice the size actually. Some of these trails have been cut quite narrow, even for something like a Safari. But yeah, no, it's doing well. You actually notice that there's a big front on this, and picking your lines is a bit tricky, so we're just going to guess. Alrighty, now it's time to get this big girlie back to her natural environment. Thanks very much, Polaris 4-wheel drive park. It has been a hoot. I think the thing that we need to respect about this car is that it is a big V8 and it'll do big V8 things, and we like that. Now there's no tunnels out here in the forest, but we can still give it a launch. Now, of course, that was fun. It was also very expensive. That probably cost about $35 that launch, but hey, we have our fun, don't we? Let's get back on the 2-lane blacktop. Alright, well, we're back on the hard stuff. Something that I noticed about this truck and the way that they've set it up, different to how other big American trucks I've driven have been set up, is that this is definitely sprung for road driving as opposed to heavy towing. This does have a 4.5 ton towing capacity, but I feel like they've more sprung it for just general driving, because given its size and given how other trucks that are like this have behaved in the past, is they have this tendency to kick the back up over bumps. This doesn't do that. This actually tracks really, really nicely, and it just glides over all of the bumps. And that kind of just adds to this overall feeling that you get of basically being in charge of a ship on a land, because it's just so big and you're such a small part of this large machine, and it's a really cool feeling. I actually really like it. You've got this massive cabin space and it's all open and airy, and yeah, you just got this massive long bonnet, and it's so easy to drive. The steering's a little bit on the heavy side for what we've come from, particularly the last thing that we did was the Jeep, and that was a one-finger operation vehicle. But other than that, it's not difficult to drive, it's just really big. One of the things about these big trucks, and it was the same in the Silverado, is there's just so much space and there's things for everything. This truck in the front alone has got 6 drink holders. I mean, for 2 people, it's ridiculous, but it's awesome that you can do that. And like the center console, you can fit all your crap in there and it's not in the way. There's just such an abundance of space because of their overall size, and that to me is one of the appeals. And I remember when we did the old Silverado, the 2500, I really liked it, but it was just such an impractical vehicle, mostly down to its size and the overall length, whereas this, being a 1500, is actually a slightly shorter wheelbase, and it makes it a little bit more practical. Now, when I say a little bit more practical, it is still a pain in the ass to try and park, because you take up the entire width of the park, and the turning circle isn't amazing, so it's still tight to get around car parks and stuff like that. But that's one of the trade-offs you have with a vehicle this size, and I'm not mad about it. That size translates through to the back as well. There is so much footroom for even somebody my size. A couple of the guys from the gym, big heavy lifting guys, wanted to have a look, and I took them for a ride, and they were very, very comfortable in the back. And there's more space in the back of this than there is in the back of a Commodore. Now, I don't know how many of you own Commodores or have been arrested, but the back of the Commodore is one of those cars that's just known for having a lot of room. This has got a lot more than that, and that's cool. Something I've just thought of as we're sitting in traffic between locations, it's a first world problem and I accept that. However, this doesn't have anywhere near as much control over the vehicle, particularly the infotainment system and things like that, off the steering wheel. And given that those things are now so far away in terms of the knobs and buttons to change things like the amount of fan speed on the air conditioning, you would think that because they are now a foot away as opposed to inches away from your steering wheel, that they'd put the buttons on here, but this is just cruise control and menu stuff. Like, at least let me turn the music up, because that's the furthest away knob, and you literally have to lean over to get to it. I just feel like they could have put that on the steering wheel. They managed to put 21 buttons on the Jeep steering wheel. So as we join the motorway, I think it's important to address the economy. It's all right. It's In all honesty, I actually managed to get this down to 8.7 litres per 100k whilst motorway cruising. I did have to reset it and then only be cruising. The average at the moment is 15.3 litres per 100 kilometres. Now, we have been messing around and we've been off-road. The most I've got, well, the most average I have from just general driving this around was about 13.8 to 14, which is not unexpected considering that we're driving a 5.7 litre Hemi V8 in a car that weighs as much as the Titanic. Now, those are things to be expected, those are trade-offs, but if you're spending that kind of money on a car, are you really that concerned about the economy? I am, because I have to pay for the fuel in this. I think what we should probably do, now that we've been to the forest and asserted our manliness, is go and take this to somewhere like Ponsonby and just show off and say, look at my big truck and look how dirty I have it. I'm a manly man. So let's go do that. Imagine living on Franklin Road and not being into Christmas. That'd suck. I kind of want to go and find a Ferrari to park behind so I can sort of not only dwarf said Ferrari, but then assert my manliness by saying, look at me, I've got a big truck and I've got mud on it because I do manly things in the forest. I just think that would be funny. Probably be a cool photo too. Follow us on Instagram. So that's been the Warlock 1500. What can I say? I've enjoyed the heck out of it. It's a big American angry V8, suits my personality, and I think it's brilliant. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, show us by hitting that thumbs up button. If you want to see more of these kind of videos, hit the subscribe. And just again, if you want to know more about these cars, like afterthoughts, specs and all of that sort of stuff, and of course some more photos, we put all of that up on the website. So if you're watching this on the YouTubes, head over to the website, watch it over there. Alright, cheers guys.